Within the broader theme of the refresher course, the 5 capsules that I will be doing would be under the broader sub-theme, gender, constitution, and laws. The first of the capsules is Constituent Assembly debates and women in the Constituent Assembly. It is important for any discussion on law, gender, constitution to go back and understand the history of constitution making in India, which was a long process, but it was also a very important participatory process where there were 15 women Constituent Assembly members. So in this first capsule, what I will do is that I will talk about these 15 members of the Constituent Assembly, share with you some of their thoughts, and finally end with referring to the speech of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar when the Constituent Assembly was ending, the last speech at the Constituent Assembly by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. And through this, what we will actually understand is the importance of liberty, equality, fraternity, and justice, the 4 pillars of the preamble to our Indian Constitution. So the 15 women who were part of the Constituent Assembly are the following. I would like to name each of them. First, Amu Swaminathan. Second, Dakshayani Velayudhan. Third, Begum Aijaz Rasool. Fourth, Durgabai Deshmukh. Fifth, Hansa Jivaraj Mehta. Sixth, Kamla Chaudhary. 7, Leela Roy. 8, Maloti Chaudhary. 9, Purnima Banerjee. 10, Rajkumari Amrit Kaur. 11, Renuka Rai. 12th, Sarojini Naidu. 13th, Sucheta Kripalani. 14, Vijay Lakshmi Pandit. 15, Annie Mascarene. What is important for all of us to remember through these names are that these are women who came from different caste, community, class, ethnicity, and region in India. To be a member of the Constituent Assembly, one had to be an elected representative, which also would mean that all of these 15 women had very significant political lives before they became members of the Constituent Assembly. It is important to take cognizance of the fact that there are women from upper caste communities, from the Dalit community, from Muslim community. Women members in the Constituent Assembly came from different regions in India, from the southern regions, from the eastern regions, from the northern regions, and from the western regions. So this intersectionality of women being present in the Constituent Assembly is something that is very, very important for us to take into cognizance, understand that importance, and actually celebrate it, that we had these 15 women leaders in the Constituent Assembly who then would provide us or play a very important role in all the debates that would happen on fundamental rights, directive principles of the state policy, fundamental duties. In all of these discussions, they would play an important role. In this context, I would like to mention just two themes around equality of status and justice for women, and quote from the Constituent Assembly debates on what did Hansa Mehta and Renuka Ray have to say on equality of status and justice for women. So on equality of status, Hansa Mehta said at the Constituent Assembly, it will warm the heart of many a woman to know that free India will mean not only equality of status, but equality of opportunity. There are thousands of women today who are denied the ordinary human rights. They are put behind the parda, secluded within the four walls of their homes, unable to move freely. The Indian woman has been reduced to such a state of helplessness that she has become an easy prey of those who wish to exploit the situation. What we have asked for is social justice, economic justice, and political justice. We have asked for that equality, which can alone be the basis of mutual respect and understanding, and without which real cooperation is not possible between men and women. So that was Hansa Mehta at the Constituent Assembly in the framing of the India's constitution, who very clearly emphasized the importance of equality of status and equality of opportunity, who talked about how through the ages, women have been secluded, marginalized, denied equality of status and opportunity. And what at this juncture the Indian constitution needs to uphold are social, economic, and political justice. But very importantly, she underlines mutual respect and understanding between genders in order for us to achieve justice and equality. Renuka Rai, when talking about justice for women, she said, and I quote, through the centuries of our decadence, subjection, and degradation, the position of women too has gone down until she has gradually lost all her rights, both in law and in society. Nonetheless, with the first stirrings of consciousness amongst women, there never arose any narrow suffragist movement that has been so common in the so many of the so-called enlightened nations. Women in this country have striven for their rights, for equality of status, for justice and fair play, most of all, to be able to take their part in responsible work and in the service of their country. She adds, we always held that when men who have fought and struggled for their country's freedom came to power, the rights and liberties of women too would be guaranteed. We already see the evidence of it today. No reservation of seats was required to induce the men who are today in power to select as ambassador the second in the history of any nation. Vijaya Lakshmi Pandit has not been selected as the ambassador to the UN because she is a woman, nor was sex made a bar to that appointment. So what Renuka Rai says is again emphasizing on equality of status and equality of opportunity, but very interestingly also suggesting that reservation of seats is something which is not necessary. This was actually a common thread that was felt by most of these 15 women Constituent Assembly members who did not ask separately for reservation of seats for women at the Constituent Assembly or to have that provision in the Constitution. Of course, all of us know that over a period of time, there is a very, very different political position on it. And we, of course, have reservation of women at the level of the panchayat and a long-standing history and debates around 33% reservation for women in the parliament. But that's a different story which we'll come to later in the final capsule. But what we see through either Renuka Roy or through Hansa Mehta or through Dakshayani Velayudhan, who did talk about, very importantly, non-discrimination on the basis of caste and sex, which is what we get enshrined through Article 15 of the Indian Constitution, and through the others, is that there is an emphasis constantly on equality, on liberty, on respect and dignity of all genders, and a very important kind of a trust and a political belief that the Indian nation state, through its constitution, will be providing all its women all of these: justice, liberty, equality, and dignity to all its citizens, and definitely to all its women. I come to the last speech that Dr. B.R. Ambedkar made on November 25th, 1949 at the Constituent Assembly. He asks this very important question. And this question that he asks is something which is relevant even today. On the 26th of January 1950, Dr. Ambedkar says, India would be a democratic country, in the sense that India from that day would have a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. The thought that comes to mind, according to Ambedkar, is what would happen to her democratic constitution? Will she be able to maintain it, or will she lose it again? By losing it again, what Dr. B.R. Ambedkar means is that it isn't that India did not know what democracy is. He talks about the study of Buddhist Bhikshu Sanghas, which disclosed that not only were there parliaments, for the Sanghas were nothing but parliaments, according to Ambedkar, but the Sanghas knew and observed all the rules of parliamentary procedure known in the modern times. And unfortunately, this democratic system was something that India lost. He proposed in this speech certain warnings which he felt is necessary for us to keep in mind if we wish to maintain democracy, not merely in form, but in fact. One of these concerns or warnings, according to Dr. Ambedkar, was that what we must do is to hold fast to constitutional methods of achieving our social and economic objectives. And a second very important thing that he said was that what we must do is not to be content with mere political democracy, but we must make our political democracy a social democracy. And what did he mean by social democracy? He meant a way of life which recognized liberty, equality, fraternity as principles of life. And he felt that these are not separate items in a trinity. They form a union of trinity in the sense that to divorce one from the other is to defeat the very purpose of democracy. And while Dr. Ambedkar talked about the importance of liberty, equality, fraternity together, and also talked about the importance of social democracy, we might also remember that this is exactly what Hansa Mehta also said, that it is not just political democracy, we also need social and economic democracy. So we see how among the Constituent Assembly members, these 15 women, Ambedkar as the chairperson of the drafting committee of the Indian Constitution, these important, not just philosophical principles, but also what will govern us, what will govern democratic India in everyday life, that is something which was discussed and resolved. And that is what is hailed in the preamble, which starts with these three important words, we, the people of India.